Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're looking into a really disturbing story. Marcel Petiot, the man they called Dr. Satan.
Yeah, operating in Paris right in the middle of World War II. It's just chillin'.
It really is. And you think about the backdrop. The war itself was horrific. But somehow Petiot's crimes, they just stand out as something else entirely.
Absolutely, a different kind of darkness almost.
Exactly. And for you listening, if you're trying to get your head around how things like this can even happen, well, this deep dive should be maybe unsettling, but hopefully insightful.
We're drawing from an article from Historic Mysteries today.
Right, and our mission really is to figure out how this guy went from, petty crimes to becoming this infamous serial killer during the war.
And how he managed to stay hidden for so long. It's quite the story.
So let's start at the beginning. The article mentions he was born in Auxerre, France, 1897.
And even as a kid, there were some pretty big red flags, seriously disturbing signs.
Like what? I mean, the article mentioned, wasn't he like 11 when he took his father's gun to school?
Yeah, a loaded gun, fired it. And apparently that same year, he propositioned another kid.
Wow. Okay, so not just typical kid stuff.
Yeah.
That's something else.
Definitely points to something deeply wrong, even back then. No surprise he got expelled from multiple schools.
And it didn't stop there, right? He moved on to actual crime as a teenager.
Got arrested for robbing a postbox. So theft, damaging property.
And this led to his first psych evaluation.
It did, and interestingly, he was diagnosed with a mental illness then, and the charges were dropped because of it.
You'd think that diagnosis might lead somewhere, like intervention.
You would hope. But the article suggests it didn't really change anything. He just kept getting into trouble.
More arrests, same diagnosis, reaffirmed in 1914. It seems like they knew something was wrong, but couldn't or didn't stop the pattern.
Exactly. Which kind of makes you wonder about mental health care back then, or just how society dealt with individuals like him.
Then things take another weird turn. Despite all this documented instability, he joins the army in 1916, World War I.
Well, wartime, they needed bodies. Desperate times.
True. But his service wasn't exactly smooth sailing either. He got injured.
Yep, during the Second Battle of the Aisne, which led to, guess what?
Another psych evaluation.
You got it. Diagnosed with a breakdown this time. Sent off to rest homes.
Did that help? Or did the old patterns just continue?
Continued. He got arrested again while he was supposed to be recovering, stealing blankets, morphine, stuff from other soldiers.
Wow. So more hospital stays, more diagnoses?
It's a consistent picture, isn't it? Deep instability, criminal behavior, just repeating.
He went back to the front briefly, though, before that grenade incident.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
The grenade injured his own foot with it. Seems intentional, right?
Sounds like it. Gets him a medical discharge, a pension. It almost feels like a preview of the manipulation to come.
A very good point. And then after the war, this is kind of incredible, he uses a program for veterans to fast-track his education.
Fast-track is putting it mildly. He finished medical school in 8 months.
8 months. Graduated December 1921. It does make you wonder about the standards, doesn't it?
It really does. So now he's Dr. Petiot, moves to Villeneuve-sur-Yonne.
And almost immediately starts using his medical practice for, well, criminal ends.
What kind of things, the article mentioned?
Getting patients hooked on drugs, apparently. Filing for state medical aid for patients he was already charging, basically double dipping.
Okay, so fraud?
And worse, there were allegations of illegal abortions, stealing from patients.
Yeah.
A total abuse of trust.
And then, the first suspected murder. Louise Delaveau.
May 1926. She disappears. She was his patient, possibly his lover. Neighbors reported seeing Petiot moving a big, heavy trunk right around that time.
A trunk, like the one later found in the river.
Exactly. Found in the Yonne River containing unidentified female remains. The connection seems pretty strong, retrospectively.
Yet somehow, despite all this suspicion, the trunk, the disappearance, he gets elected mayor that same year.
It's almost unbelievable, isn't it? Mayor of Villeneuve-sur-Yonne.
How does that even happen? Yeah. Was there just not enough proof? Or was he that charming?
Probably a mix of things. Maybe people didn't want to believe it. Maybe the evidence wasn't concrete enough for the authorities back then. And yeah, maybe he could talk his way through things.
He even got married, had a kid, presented this normal facade.
He did. Married Georgette Lablay in 27, son born in 28, but the facade couldn't last.
Right. His time as mayor was apparently full of scandals.
Oh, yeah. Embezzlement, more theft, fraud. He had to resign in 1931.
Got reelected briefly as a councilor, though, before getting caught stealing electricity.
Yep. Just couldn't stop himself, it seems. Always pushing boundaries, always breaking rules.
So having basically run out of options there, he heads to Paris.
And sets up shop again, a medical practice, this time using fake credentials to seem more impressive.
And the same old patterns emerge.
Pretty much. Prescribing addictive drugs, fraud. He even got institutionalized for kleptomania for a bit.
Kleptomania.
Yeah.
But they let him out pretty quickly.
Seems so. Maybe they didn't grasp the depth of his issues, or the system just wasn't equipped.
So we've seen this whole progression. Troubled kid, petty crime, unethical doctor. But then World War II hits.
And that's when things escalate dramatically. The chaos of war seems to have been the perfect environment for him.
He managed to dodge the German draft in 1940.
Forged disability papers, always finding an angle, and then he starts building this completely false persona.
A French resistance hero.
Exactly, calling himself Dr. Eugene. He sets up this elaborate, fake escape network.
Targeting who? People desperate to get out of occupied France.
Jews, resistance fighters, even common criminals. Anyone the Germans were after. He promised them safe passage to South America. For a hefty fee, of course.
25,000 francs, the article said. A fortune back then.
A huge sum. And it was all a lie. He had accomplices directing victims straight to him.
And his method was just horrific.
Clinical, almost. He told them they needed inoculations for the journey, but the injections were cyanide.
God, that's cold. Preying on their hope like that.
And after they were dead, he'd just take all their belongings. Started by dumping bodies in the Seine.
But that got too risky.
Apparently. So he switched methods. Started using quicklime, burning bodies in his coal stove, trying harder to cover his tracks.
It gets worse and worse. And the Gestapo, incredibly, they heard about this network.
They did, but they thought it was real resistance activity. They even tried to infiltrate it.
With that prisoner, Robert Dreyfus, who then vanished.
Right, which probably just confirmed their suspicions about it being a resistance cell. They arrested 3 of Petiot's accomplices eventually.
But never connected it back to Petiot as a killer. They thought the accomplices were resistance members.
Exactly. The sheer horror of what Petiot was actually doing was maybe unimaginable even to them in that context. The war itself was the perfect cover.
Terrifying. The chaos hit him in plain sight, almost. But eventually, something had to give.
It did. March 1944. The smell. The smoke coming from his house on Rue Le Sueur. Neighbors finally called the authorities.
And what they found, the article calls it a house of horrors.
Understatement. Human remains buried in the basement, 10 bodies initially. More in the stove, in a quicklime pit outside.
And the house just full of victim stuff.
Suitcases, clothes. Yeah. Just mountains of it. Undeniable proof of mass murder. The media went wild. That's when Dr. Satan really became the name everyone knew.
But Petiot himself, he wasn't there, was he? He'd vanished.
Slipped away. Managed to hide out for 7 months.
7 months. How? And what was his story then?
He claimed the bodies were Germans, collaborators, killed for the resistance. Still trying to spin that narrative.
Incredible nerve. But they caught him eventually.
October 31st, 1944. Recognized at a Paris metro station. The jig was finally up.
Did he stick to the resistance story at his trial?
Oh, absolutely. Maintained the whole time that he was a patriot, that the victims were enemies of France killed by his network.
But the evidence just wasn't there.
Not a shred. No one could back up his claims about these supposed resistance groups. It all fell apart.
So conviction.
Convicted on 26 counts of murder, though everyone suspected the real number was much, much higher. Sentenced to death.
And executed in 1946.
By beheading, May 25th. He took the true number of his victims with him. We'll likely never know for sure.
It's just such a profoundly disturbing story. How evil can, I don't know, fester like that and then just explode during a time of crisis.
It really is. That trajectory from those early warning signs to Dr. Satan, it's a chilling example of human darkness. And the questions that remain just hang there, don't they?
They really do. So maybe something for you, the listener, to think about. How can someone exploit chaos and fear on such a massive scale?
Yeah, what is it about those times of crisis that allows someone like Petiot to operate, to hide for so long, doing such unimaginable things?
What societal factors, even in wartime, fail to catch someone like that? It's, definitely something to mull over.